So now I am absolutely delighted to welcome an amazing educator who is passionate about two things: classics and education. She has spent over 2 decades working in schools and universities, and now is an independent tutor, researcher, and education influencer and facilitator. She seeks today to offer some tips for fostering that wonderful natural curiosity and creativity that we all have, and which underpin all areas of learning and knowledge. She is none other than Dr. George Longley from the United Kingdom. Hello, Dr. George, how are you?
I'm unmuted, great. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Anusha, that was really kind. Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So,
okay.
I am so delighted to welcome you to our Education Influence Spotlight, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say, Chrissy, that was fantastic. You are a very hard act to follow, but I'm very pleased to be presenting with you today. So let me share my screen. Hopefully don't crash the whole network in the process. Let's get rid of that from the get-go. Go. Minor technical issues, right, here we are. Okay, so thank you very much, Anusha. Thank you very much, Gavin, for inviting me to be here today. It's a real pleasure. So curiosity and creativity, where it all begins, towards what I hope is a more interconnected and integrated approach to learning, and also a more inclusive one. Okay, so a child who finds something new is driven by curiosity. They examine it, they try it out, they test it, they try something else if that doesn't work. And if, providing they're not too tired when they just sort of kick off. At least my son does that sometimes. They think, what else could I try? They learn, they try again, and they gain new knowledge. And that's wonderful. That's a lovely, natural, organic unlearning process, which is where we all start, all subjects start, and that's where it takes them. So whatever form or path these early explorations take, the child is exploring the world around them, developing an understanding of that world, developing an understanding of themselves, I'd even say, and is also discovering their own unique path. And that's really what I want to sort of keep as my kind of core concept for today. So compare this to the GCSE candidate going over the irregular verbs for the umpteenth time because they are on the syllabus. The child revising various science formulae for the same reason. It's on the syllabus. Beyond that, that's why they think they're learning it. The child who feels they have to do a particular subject because it will get them a better job, brackets allegedly, but they don't really like that subject and they're worried they won't really do very well at it. So where is that really sweetly curious child gone who just pursues learning driven on by their natural curiosity? And how can we get that back into schools and replicate that lovely process? So today I am asking, how can we bring back that sweet, innocent early learner and replicate that organic form of learning? And how this enables a more interconnected outlook on learning and removing subject hierarchies, which I'm sure you'll realize is a bit of a bugbear of mine, but also why I believe this leads to happier, more confident pupils who are therefore better prepared for the world in which they are going to be living. And this, of course, is, I think, what we would all want to see in education with our children: happier, more confident, and feeling that their place in it is fine and that they can flourish in their own sort of unique area, whatever that might be. So what's the problem? Well, there's too much pigeonholing for a start. This idea that you've got to jump one way or the other, you can't be good at this, you can't be good at this and good at that, or, well, yeah, that's good, but it's not really relevant, so why don't you think about this instead? As a result, the bigger picture gets lost. Let's think about why we are learning this, how it is helping us to understand ourselves in the world much more fully, and we get very focused on targets, on grades, as is inevitable. It's not educators or teachers' fault. This is the system they have ended up in, and striking a balance is extremely difficult. Been there, got the t-shirt, done that. An excess or narrowly conceived relevance. Now, one thing I find always very interesting is that often the concept of relevance is being pushed by whether it's exam boards or whether it's people writing a syllabus, however well intentioned they may be. It's much governed by what does society need, rather than what's actually going to make this child feel that they are happy and well placed to enter the world. They're not necessarily the same things. So there may be sort of transient trends in the society where particular skills are very much in demand, but not everybody is going to be naturally suited to learning those skills. I mean, try imagining me as an electrician. Good luck with that. And I think this is what creates an unhealthy hierarchy of subjects. And I don't believe this necessarily breeds an inclusive or interconnected learning model. In fact, this will result in a lot of kids and pupils, I believe, not realizing their full potential, harming their confidence and feeling that the education system is not for them or has not helped them find and fulfill their strengths. So how do we solve it? Well, let curiosity lead the way. There's nothing wrong with curiosity. It's led to some of the greatest discoveries in history. So we should be encouraging that, to let our children be led by that and follow their curiosities, and wherever their strengths are shown to lie. Let curiosity be creative. That not only enables children to express their curiosity and where they feel it's best targeted, but it also helps them, and I've just gone off my train of thought, but it also helps them feel confident about their own strengths. They don't have to feel there's something they don't feel they have to fit a mold. Their strength is okay. We want to hear about it. So let them be creative with it, and to let curiosity speak. And I'll be talking quite a lot about dialogue in this presentation and how that can very much help students feel confident in their curiosities. So let curiosity lead the way. Well, how? Okay, so reframing, and as I said, dialogue. Part and parcel of the same picture. You can't separate these. Your dialogue with your pupil is how you frame your delivery of subjects and how you encourage their confidence in pursuing the subjects that are right for them and what they enjoy, and letting their curiosity fly. And dialogue, not just between pupil and teacher, but between pupil as well. So all knowledge is one. And here you might decide I've just gone a little bit out of my lost my marbles a bit, but I really assure you I haven't. I'm not saying all subject matter is the same. What I'm saying is take that lovely organic process of learning we all saw at the beginning. That's what all major discoveries, all those wonderful steps from the ancient world to now have grown from in our discovery and in our increased understanding of the world we live in. So all knowledge is one. It's diverse, it's inclusive, but above all, it's interconnected. Just because you do one subject doesn't mean you can't understand the processes that lie behind a different subject. So this is what I would like to be talking about today, is how we celebrate the diversity of learning and subject matter and skills, but equally make it inclusive so that children can understand and enjoy their different tastes and enjoy pursuing their curiosities, but equally understanding that they are contributing to a bigger picture too, whatever different way that may be. Okay, so learning is one, knowledge is one. And I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. Now that I just realized actually that looks a little bit like Gavin. It's not Gavin, but equally legendary in my opinion. So this is Lucretius, one of my favorite authors ever. And you're probably wondering why I've got a paintbrush and an atom. Well, Lucretius was a philosopher, and a philosopher who was very much a proponent of atomic theory. Yep, all the way back in the ancient world. This is 1st century BC. Atomic theory had been born. And rather than writing a textbook, they didn't really have them in those days, he wrote a poem. He wrote a beautiful, wonderful poem encapsulating his theory of atomic theory, atoms, how they behaved, and his language imitates all that. And yes, it's a very difficult poem to read, but what a lovely illustration that art can serve science, science can serve art, and they needn't be seen as diametrically opposed. So I just had to slip a bit of classics in there. So, but yes, I do believe there is a much closer connection between all the subjects that we teach in schools, from PE to sport to music to art to languages to humanities to sciences. Okay, and so let's move on. So all subjects stem from these skills, what I've called the commonality of skills. So all these are natural to human beings. When I'm talking about skills, I should just clarify, I'm not talking about things that you might teach them. So how to use Word, how to use PowerPoint, all very important. But there are all these wonderful skills that are innate in human beings: curiosity, enthusiasm, the desire to explore, the desire to discover, critical reasoning, logic, resilience, learning, reflection, and motivation. And these do underpin all learning and where it comes from, and should also underpin how we encourage our children to pursue their passions and pursue their interests in a way that makes them healthy and confident adults ready to enter the world. They're not the property of any particular subject, and being good at a particular subject does not automatically make you better at one of these compared to someone who's doing, say, subject B. So this is a little activity that I used to do in my critical thinking sessions at the second school I worked at. How do the skills listed here contribute to the study of X? And there are two ways of doing this. You can give them the subject, and then they can think about it, and then you can do it with another subject. The way I did it was I gave them all, it wasn't as neat as this, I must say. It was my horrible scribbles on a whiteboard when I first set this activity up. And I just said, well, I want you to pick a subject that's not your favorite, and have a little bit about how each of these skills and human qualities contribute to your study of that subject. And I would then make them talk in pairs about how these manifest themselves in the learning process in different subjects. And almost without exception, they realized most subjects contained most of these. But when I started, I said, so which subjects do you think contain most of these? That list had completely changed by the end. And I think engaging them in the dialogue of what learning is and why we do it is therefore very important. So that's just a little activity I used to do to get this kind of interconnected thinking and dialogue going with my lot. Okay, so however curiosity guides, the curiosity guide as I call it, steers pupils, and whatever it reveals to them about their strengths, they must realize that it is valid. It's not a lesser importance. It's not of greater importance. It's all a wonderful part of the picture of finding their place in the world and equally understanding that world. So what is the one or the whole that I speak of? I probably should have explained this sooner. Essentially, it's the world around us and what it is to be human. And here are some thoughts I've had on how the subjects we're also familiar with, what they can tell us about this. The scientist can look at the universe or human beings, animals or plants. The geographer looks at the physical world and its sheer variety. Linguists study a new way of understanding a people or culture. It's not just about grammar drilling and all that stuff that people think we classicists do. History makes us reflect on ourselves as human beings at different times. Art and dance, as Chrissy was saying, can illuminate nature's natural beauty, but so can art. And classics, I had to get my subject in there somewhere, shows us that human beings can be brilliant, awful, kind, cruel, and what's changed? Not a lot, sadly, but this kind of thinking, I hope, will enable children to realize they can be confident about making the difference in the world we are in. Okay, different subjects are different perspectives. They're not to be ranked, in my opinion. So the starting point is learner interests, and this doesn't have to be, it's great to start this an early point. Well, ask them what they like. What do you think you're good at and why do they like it? And as long as, and if they feel confident and happy about speaking about that, they'll be confident in pursuing a route that's right for them, not feeling pigeonholed or shoved down a route that's not really for them. A very wise infant teacher who I once knew, an activity she'd do is she'd get the children all sit around in the class and say, I'd like you all to name one thing you enjoy and you think you're really good at. And just occasionally you'd have a child who was not so confident said, well, I'm not sure. And then she'd look at the other and said, well, what do you think? And they would say, don't you remember how well you did this or how well you did that? And so that's great, because then you've got them all reinforcing the confidence of that other pupil, but also celebrating a diversity of abilities as well. Okay, so this can happen at any age, and it doesn't have to be confined to the pre-exam years. An ongoing dialogue about the place of all subjects as parts of a whole, I think, is very important. So, learner interests, but this is not just a dialogue between teacher and pupil. Between pupils is also very important, because as I was saying earlier about the understanding and appreciation of diverse interests and talents, greater understanding of the connection between subjects, and appreciation of the natural human skills that underpin the pursuit of all subjects, in my opinion. Okay, so time to let curiosity be creative. It couldn't just be painting. I'm sure you're all a lot more creative and imaginative than me, but these are just some ideas that I had. So paint what you love about your subject, or paint why you think it's important. Talk to a friend about their favourite subject and collaborate on a work that shows both the difference between the subjects and the connection between them. If anyone has anything they think, oh, I'd definitely do that, I'd love to hear it in the question and answer session after this paper. What would you paint for your beloved pet subject? Okay, so connection and integration. This is very much part of sort of fostering that curiosity for me. So there are two key sort of branches to this that in my opinion, that I'm going to look at now. So it's all part of the process, shared skills that underpin all these other subjects. All part of the outlook, so the bigger picture, the one that I've been talking about. Okay, so all part of the process. This again is a basis for an activity that one could use. So sort of 5 subject areas: sciences, mathematics, arts, languages, and humanities. Different subjects, but what connects them? Think about the skills each demands. This is similar to the one I had earlier, except we've got the subjects as the sort of stimulus here rather than the actual skills themselves. An activity like this will make them think, how do they all share an element of logic? How do they all share a need to be resilient, a need to be persistent? What are they contributing to our understanding of the world around us? So all part of the outlook. So once again, dialogue is key. I think one thing I would have always loved to have done if I'd had more time when I was teaching in schools was engaging them more about what learning is really about, why we're doing it, why it's so actually such good fun. It's not just about, we need to get to the end of that set text. Oh, we haven't got to the end of that topic. There's a lot more to it than that. And I know this is something we all very much share as part of educationinfluence.com. What are the different ways in which we observe the world around us? If you want to understand people, what do you need to study? What questions do you need to ask? How are the subjects you're learning helping you answer those questions? If they're not, what do you think should be done about that? So very much, again, it's about dialogue. So all part of education's outlook. Which subjects contribute to and promote these aspects of human beings? So if we assume human beings are curious, natural explorers, communicators, naturally logical, diverse, natural learners, and naturally creative, which subjects do you think best serve these aspects of being human? You won't necessarily get every subject in every box, but I think this is another one I've done with critical thinking classes, less than in my subject-based lessons. But it often surprises them that they've, say, put sciences and languages in the same box, and they find that very interesting, very illuminating. Okay, now why does this matter? Well, pupils will not feel that their subject does not matter. Pupils will see a purpose to their subject beyond exams. And pupils will not feel that they favour a lesser subject. Pupils will better understand their peers' unique subject perspective better. Why do classics? That's one question I've dealt with over the years. Pupils will understand and celebrate their natural diversity. And pupils will therefore feel more confident and more motivated. And this will help them allow their curiosity to lead the way rather than blocking it because they think they've got to focus on that syllabus or finishing that unit. So let's get creative. How to explore learning's connections in a creative way. So just a couple of suggestions. Take an object or natural feature. It could be a tree. Let pupils respond creatively in their own way and let them explain their approach. Did they go for a more scientific illustration of the tree and how it works? Did they go for an artistic depiction? They're all valid ways of looking at that tree. And then let them compare their different approaches, and then perhaps present to the class. And just a little bit of drama, but I think I'm going on a little bit, so I will just skate over this when I can talk about it a little more. But we've still got a syllabus to deliver, someone says. Yes, we can't all get away from that tyranny, if you want to call it that. That's the setup. So when introducing the syllabus, don't, I say. No, I have not lost my marble because I'm not saying ignore the syllabus. What I'm simply saying is don't open with this is the syllabus. Spend a few minutes enthusing, asking pupils why they've chosen it. So, for example, don't say, well, this is what you're going to learn about on this syllabus. Say, okay, cool. You've chosen Latin, I might as well take my own subject. Why did you choose it? Why did you think this was a really cool subject to take? And get them thinking about what it's going to give them beyond that exam at the end. So yes, you've got a syllabus to deliver, but it doesn't, your lessons don't have to be all about that. And I'm sure most of us are doing this already. But it's something I wanted to show that I really love doing. I was often known as the teacher of random facts at my last school because I would often slip in the most random things that weren't on the syllabus, but still kept them interested. So going beyond the syllabus to deliver the syllabus. Okay, I'm not saying go wildly off on a tangent, but there's nothing wrong with dropping in some nice little extras that made you enthusiastic about your subject, that set the syllabus in context a bit. So they see it as learning something in a sort of a lifelong way that's really interesting, that has stimulated their curiosity, rather than just, let's go and learn the vocab list now. So the occasional prep that is off syllabus will only benefit learning. So, for example, when teaching a set text, I might say, right, you're going off to research this character, you're going off to research that particular year, which is relevant. And so we talk about the history and the context, and that made them think, can't wait to read this text. This is such a cool period of history. You know, they were curious about it. They wanted to discover it wasn't just about, let's plow through this incredibly dense booklet of Latin that I've thrown at them. So, and compare and connect. So encouraging comparisons with other subjects. So you might, for example, introduce a bit of history into science. If you're doing astronomy, you might throw in the Greeks, or you might throw in the Maya or something like that. Cross-language comparison, words that are similar in different languages. They often love a bit of linguistics. Historical modern comparisons. This is one of my favorites, comparing human parallels from the ancient world and today, or even back to the linguistics, the origins of scientific mathematical terms. Okay, so just some thoughts on venues one might use to get this dialogue on learning going. You could have tutor groups, critical thinking forum, pupil-led groups, or one thing I found really cool was teacher seminars, where a pupil or a teacher can present on something from their subject that they've researched and found really cool. And the teachers from any subject, any discipline can turn up and ask questions. I think that's really great for promoting that sort of cross interdisciplinary understanding. So let curiosity lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay.
That's okay. And we do have many questions popping in for you. So first question is from Yvonne Prinsloo, and she's tuning in from South Africa. She says, curiosity needs to be encouraged in the classroom, especially when working with high school students. So how we phrase questions in the classroom is very important. So any guidelines on how to do that efficiently?
Okay, how to phrase the question. So obviously you can't get away from some content questions like, what does this word mean if you're teaching a language, or what's the formula for X, Y, Z? But you could one way of perhaps making it a little bit more interesting than just a simple, have you got the right answer, was, oh, did you know who invented this formula? It's such and such. Give a bit of context, and then ask your questions, so they get a sense of, oh, that's really interesting. It's not just this sort of disembodied formula on a page. One question I used to learn, now I'm no astronomy teacher, but when I'm confronted with that question, so why classics, I would say, so who thought of the first theory of heliocentricity? You know, the whole Earth going around the sun thing. They'd say, oh, that was Copernicus. I said, no, it wasn't. It was Aristarchus of Samos in the 4th century BC. So questions that are connected to the subject, but also bring in a little bit extra. So let me take an example from classics, but this will also be relevant, I hope, for sort of English language reading texts. So rather than saying, so who's the main figure in this story? Sejanus. Well, yes, okay. Sejanus was a very naughty captain of the Praetorian Guard. And say, why does Tacitus want to tell us this story in the first place? And so after you've talked about what he represents about the decline of Rome and that area, you can say, who would be the modern equivalent? Just to get them thinking a little bit beyond the syllabus, a little comparatively, and seeing how this very ancient text connects to sort of the wider world around them and lessons they can sort of extract from that. So questions that do target syllabus, obviously we can't get away from, but questions that encourage them to sort of think about, A, why they're studying it, but also what the significance of that particular text or subject is. Does that answer your question, Yvonne? That would be my way into it. I hope people feel that's sort of applicable across the board rather than
Yvonne, please unmute
about
yourself.
Classics. Yeah. Okay.
I also think that I was just busy typing in the chat box, asking open-ended questions.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Just initiate that discussion, and also to just make the questions relevant to their current context, what they are busy and breathing every single day. That is how you actually also bring critical thinking into the whole process. You know, you can't just ask them, what date was this war?
Oh, exactly. No, I absolutely agree.
Just make it open and then create that discussion, and you can find out from them, what do they actually know about the topic before you introduce it in the classroom.
Well, one thing I used to do when I was teaching classical civilization, I used to teach the Greek and Roman drama option. And one that I would always start, I'd never start with, this is what you're studying. I'd always give them a story I'd say, so where's this from? And it would be a recent or fairly recent sort of very newsworthy story. It was Greek tragedy, so it was never usually a very nice story. And they say, oh, it's that story, it's that story. Oh, I read about this last year, I read about this in that paper. And then I'd flash up a sort of summary of the plot of Agamemnon, whichever tragedy was the best parallel. And they'd go, oh. I said, yes. What does this tell you? And they said, we weren't very nice then and we're not very nice now, one of them said. And I thought, well, it's not that simple, you know. But the point is, yes, these traits are going to occur throughout history. So what an interesting way to explore them through the ancient world, not just reading the paper or current affairs, so to speak. So absolutely, get them thinking critically around an open-ended question, as you say, or something that's comparative, but not actually telling them specifically how it relates to the subject yet. You know, give it to them in a new way and make them go, oh, And then you can start exploring the syllabus and the topic, give it a bit of grounding, give it a bit of context. And as you say, see what they know already. That's a wonderful thing to do. And they'll often, they're really clued up, and that's fantastic. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great question. No, great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. And we do have another question from Dheeraj Gurung, and I think he's tuning in from Belgium. And his question is there an order for the commonality of skills?
Is there an order? I don't think there's necessarily a hierarchy. Now, I'm no psychologist, but I suspect there's probably an order for which they kind of develop as the child grows. Which comes first, I'm not sure. I suspect curiosity is quite an early developer, but also if you think how the senses develop, the ability to touch different things and perceive difference, and then curiosity to explore different things comes along the line. I certainly don't think there's a hierarchy. There's probably a developmental order to them, and I'll probably have to leave that one to an expert, but it's a very good question. I don't think there's one's better than the other. Just to clarify what I was saying, this phrase has just come to me. It may be that when you're studying a particular subject, you have to think, which do I need first? Or you have to focus on one or a couple at different times, depending on where you are in the learning process, as you become more conscious of sort of harnessing these different skills. But I don't think there's a kind of order of importance, if that answers your question.
Dheeraj, if you are tuning in, if you have any more questions, please do unmute yourself and shout out all your queries.
Thank you for the answer. I mean, yeah, I was quite confused because like it was not as in, for example, in a pyramid or other kind of hierarchy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that it can be varied based on different subjects.
Absolutely, and I think they can vary in difference in terms of emphasis, as I say, where you are in the learning process, and I think they will probably come online in terms of child development in different order. I probably should have included Maslow here. He was in mind when I kind of put those qualities together. But again, he doesn't differentiate in terms of importance. It's simply when these needs are met, then these skills can develop and new needs can be, and eventually you get to sort of reflection. And I think he calls it enlightenment at the top, and you might think, that's a kind of high point of development, but you can't get there unless your basic needs are met, unless certain aspects of your curiosity or wherever you are in the learning process are satisfied. And so although it's traditionally depicted as a pyramid, if one goes back here, an essay concerning human motivation, he's got a far more integrated view of these all happen at once. They just come online at different times, so to speak.
Yeah, because like you were presenting about curiosity, and for me it will be the base rather than on the top. But
yeah,
again,
absolutely.
Yeah, but again, until and unless you let a child or anyone explore first, they will not have this kind of curiosity aroused on them, right? So,
exactly, absolutely. I think it's very much ties in with what Yvonne was asking as well, in that, well, let them show their own curiosity and enthusiasm first, give them something that makes them think about it in a slightly unusual way, or ask that open-ended question that they can show you, yep, this is what I know. Oh, this is really cool. Is that right? I was just wondering X. Let them lead the way. That's fine. That's great. That's what we want to see. And that smile when they think, oh, that's really cool. That's one of the best moments in teaching, I think, is when you get that. It's when you get the, oh, that's so cool moment.
Thank you so much.
We want to have them in lessons. They're great. Yeah.
Thanks.
And Gavin, do you have any questions? I think he's on mute.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it was, really interesting to listen to the presentation, especially because of your depth in knowledge. Obviously, your subject knowledge is amazing. And
thank you.
As a teacher myself, do you think that it's about time that we treated teachers with the respect for the profession that they are? Quite often what happens in my experience in this industry for 25 years is that parents and people on the outside of education, they look at teachers as people who just play and do the alphabet and play in the sand and spell, and hey, it's just great, we just hang out with kids all day. Actually, we're professionals, we've done a degree, we're the same as a doctor, an architect. You know, you don't go to the doctor and when he's giving you the medicine say, hey buddy, are you sure this is the right amount of medicine? Because, you know, I know you're a doctor and everything, but surely anybody can be a doctor. Like, do you think that there is a lack of, not respect, but, you know, equality, or, you know, this stigma around teachers being people who just play with children? Do you think that's something that needs to be brought back to the forefront?
Absolutely. And I think anyone who sort of follows me on LinkedIn will know that I frequently have a bit of a rant about this after various articles. No, I completely agree. And actually, I would say it is respect. And you're right, it's a perspective that they just sort of, they knock off at 4, they've had some nice kids in front of them and that's all they do. They don't see the fact that you work very hard to create that presentation to make it interesting, or that you're marking till midnight, or that you've stayed behind after school to try and encourage that kid who's feeling really underconfident, or you've given up your lunchtime. As you say, we're qualified professionals, you know, we don't just do it for our own amusement. We do it because we care and we've got something we want to impart to these children. We want to sort of, you know, make them fly, make them sing, make them really enthusiastic. And I think your analogy to doctors is a very good one, because as you said, you don't question the doctor, but I've had it in my teaching career. People questioning sort of, oh well, that, you know, no, I know that's not the case. Oh well, yes, well that's not up to much, and you feel you can come away feeling a bit belittled sometimes, and so thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. Please trust me to do so. I mean, don't think it's a problem in all areas of the world. I think in the UK, I think it's a massive problem, actually. And I've got friends in other countries who say the same. But a really interesting book that I was reading, I haven't finished it yet, which is really bad of me, but I've just had so much on. But it's a book called In Teachers We Trust, about the Finnish system. And very much this idea of teachers being viewed as professionals who are held in respect, and commanding that degree of trust is something that's much stronger over there than it is here. And so and also it's a pretty important job we've got, looking after, you know, our future generations and wanting to give them the best shot. It would be nice to think we were trusted in doing that role, wouldn't it?
And actually, the thing that I find is that what's holding us back the most in terms of the education system globally is the fact that the education that we went to, the schools that we probably attended, were post-industrial revolution schools. So we were trained to basically follow rules, sit in rows, put our fingers on our lips, be quiet, fill in this textbook and get 100%. If we got 100%, everything was great. But actually, that's stifling any kind of change in education, because parents are coming into parent-teacher conferences or coming into the classroom and say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, you know, Mrs. Longley, that's not how I learned it, and that's not what I think you should be doing in class, because I learned that you do multiplication using an algorithm. And you say, well, actually, modern neurological science has shown us that doing an algorithm is actually very, very, very stagnant and slow. Actually, what's using the compensation strategy and mental computation strategy is way better. And parents say, look, you know, it's not what I'm going to talk to the principal about this. And the principal says, look, you know, Mrs. Johnson, just do what the parents want, because you don't want to lose their enrollments. Yes. And you never get to move forward because no one is willing to, you know, to take that leap of faith and say, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm a teacher. I'm actually a professional here. And I think that's a substantial problem that's holding the industry back globally, especially in countries where parents are paying a significant amount of money to go to school, because they say, well, I'm paying for this. And if I'm paying you'll do what I say. So to speak. When I say jump, you'll jump.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely, you're absolutely right. That's what happened. And as a teacher, you try and say that in the most polite way you can, but you've got to say it in the most polite way you can, but you sort of get slapped on the wrist for lack of customer satisfaction, for want of a better word of it, so to speak. And you just feel like you're sort of it's slightly become, there's so much focus now on sort of covering your back, I think, in some areas, that you really don't feel that, you think, I just want to focus on my teaching, please. You know, I know I can do this, please just let me get on with it. So I completely agree.
A lot of research has come out about remote learning, where what happened was parents were watching the lesson when the parents were working from home, the kids were learning from home, and the parent was watching the lesson to find problems with the lesson, to say, oh, she spelt that word wrong. I'm writing an email to the principal. Barbara spelt the word synopsis wrong, or synonyms. She used two N's. And, they were spying on the teachers, and the teachers felt actually more anxious, teaching online, for the fear that the lesson was recorded and would be replayed in case the teacher did something wrong, or the mums and dads were looking over the shoulder of the child to spot those problems that were happening. And I think it's about time we realize that in any industry, in any job that anyone is doing, there's going to be a bit of give and take. And if you don't experiment, nothing ever moves forward.
Exactly. A teacher might make a spelling error, but they're human. I'm sure they've made one in an email. I mean, oh, this is really embarrassing. I misspelt my favorite author's name wrong in a presentation once. And they said, oh, I was just checking. I said, and you laugh it off. They know that they make mistakes. You make mistakes. It's not, missing a C out of Cicero is quite embarrassing, but there you go. But it's not this idea that also that you're almost subject to a heavier scrutiny for being a teacher.
That's right. It's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? They don't trust you, but you've got to be perfect. Like, you better get everything right. Don't make a mistake, but I don't trust you.
It's a massive paradox. Absolutely, it is. And I've had a few experiences, none quite as stark as that, but one where they were, where I said, well, where I thought the pupil was at that particular point. I wasn't saying this was definitely the grade they were going to get. Got a massive lecture about how I was completely wrong. That was not the grade they were going to get, which is not what I'd said anyway. But then when I talked about what they need to do to improve, which of course they could, it was a very good pupil. Said, oh yes, I can see what you were saying now.
Yes.
I thought, but I had to kind of sort of, give that detailed explanation to get that sort of acceptance
she does know what she's talking about. After all, she is a professional. I didn't realise that teaching was a profession.
Wow. I know.
Wow.
It's a very sad state of affairs, actually.
Sorry, anyway, I'm taking all your time. Yvonne's got a hand up.
Okay.
I just wanted to also add to what you are saying. I had a situation the other day where I had a couple of parents in my class, 20 parents, and they were just shooting all sorts of questions and kind of allegations at me about the classroom situation. And our teachers are being so hard on the children, and we need to watch our tone, how we speak to the kids and all of that. And I just got up and I said, really, if you have the opportunity to set your foot into my classroom for 1 hour of one day, and you see what we go through on a daily basis, you will understand why there is a tone sometimes. You will understand why certain things happen, and you will have just a little bit more empathy with us and everything we go through on a daily basis to make sure that your child is properly educated. So it's just a case of empathy and just putting yourself in the shoes of the educator, because it's not easy.
No, I think that's very well said, Yvonne, because it was to sort of slightly go to the sort of realm of reality TV. There was not exactly an experiment, but they invited, there was a program, not the Jamie Oliver one, but another one where they'd invited some celebrities at the top of their games to be teachers for a day, and they'd all come in thinking, oh, this is easy, we know our stuff, we're going to breeze this. I can't remember who it was, an actress. She came out of the lesson and said, that is the most exhausted I have ever felt. This is someone who must have had calls for shoots at 3 a.m. or whatever, came out of an hour's lesson, was going, oh my God, newfound respect for teachers, I'm so sorry. Not easy. Had really enjoyed it, but had not really understood the energy and just sheer investment involved that, as you say, we go through it every day, and at least 6 times often, depending on how long our lesson and our school day is structured. I mean, I remember I had a very good Greek set. One school I worked at, classics was very well supported, to be fair, but Greek, because it was a bit of a minority subject, well, yes, of course it is, we always end up with the graveyard shift, as we used to call it. It was lesson 6 on a Friday, and that lesson started at 5:40 p.m. I'd love some people to tell me that's easy. It wasn't easy, but it was great fun. It was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I had a lovely, enthusiastic bunch, but you did have to think quite carefully, how am I going to make sure they really want to be here? They've been on the sports pitch, they've had another lesson, and now they're rocking up and I've got to teach them the passive. Okay, but we enjoy it. It was exhausting, but and as you say, they don't really understand that, do they? You know, until they've actually had to do it themselves.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello, hello. Hi, George. It's so interesting to hear you. I cannot relate to half the things that you're talking about here. It's right. Some of it's right here because of your subject. It's not about the curiosity, but it's your subject. My goodness, wow.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. All the things that you're talking about. I'm thinking of my subject, early years education.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if there's any other early years educators here, but I thought what I learned a couple of years ago that really helps with awakening that curiosity in children, because our world is so instant now. Everything is instant. They want instant answers. They want instant everything. I play dumb very quickly. So when there's a lot of questions, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Let's find out together. How can we find out? What do we need to find out? You will not believe 3-year-olds will tell you Google. They will say the word Google. Go on Google.
So that's
the
true.
other day.
I was
helping. I don't know if that can work with the older students, but I was thinking, in the olden days, we were taught, you're a teacher, you stand in the front, you should know all the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we don't need to know all the answers.
No, we don't. Absolutely. I think it's a really good point. Sorry, I'll come back in a minute. Anything further? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No. But that is what I was thinking about, giving them the opportunity to ask the questions, and more for us to be like facilitators or scaffolders in this little environment.
No,
we
absolutely
we act as the children as well. Well, I don't know when so and so was born. Let's try and find out. And what did they do? Well, I haven't got a clue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think you make an excellent point. I think that's absolutely true of children of all ages. Let's just say I also caught an undergraduate out in using Wikipedia for his essay and not really disguising it very well. And I thought, I didn't tell you that term. I don't believe you thought of it. Talking about a Roman general's retirement package. I just thought, I wonder where you've got that. Oh, God. And it is a very good point. It's how to also to get, the internet is probably one of the best lessons we've got nowadays in how to get them to think critically and not just accept everything. Whereas sometimes I find they look in a book and they just think, oh, well, that's old fashioned, and they dismiss it. But it's on Google, so it's the gospel or whatever. And you just think, no. And something we used to do with our year nines at my last school, they used to do as part of their end of year 9 exam, a project on any aspect of the ancient world that really took their fancy. And a colleague of mine and I did this, we used to have the explore lesson, and we'd have a big pile of books at the front of the classroom, and they'd say, oh, I'm just going to use my phone. I said, no, you're not, because you're going to hand it in. Take their phones in. They had to take a book. And they said, but isn't there anything more? I said, well, Daisy said, well, I could tell you, I was taught by the person who wrote that book, and they know their stuff. So I think actually you should read them first and then measure your Google search by that book. And they went, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I said, yeah. So you've all got 2 minutes, pick a sort of a chapter opening or something and feedback what you've learned. But I wouldn't let them use their phones. And then sometimes I'd make them use the phone. They say, but that's not what was in the book. I said, so who are you going to trust? Who's the more reliable source here? I don't know. You tell me. And so to engage them in sort of how you approach learning and how you assess sources is so important now. It's more important almost than it ever was, I think. So when you were saying about the early years, you say, okay, well, how about we go outside and look at something rather than just go Google bashing or something like that. It's, there's so many ways to get them to think, if Google disappeared overnight, how would you find this out? No, you wouldn't cry, because there's a way of finding it out. So, there are ways around it, and it's just keeping them on that and reading that, curiosity does not stop with you thinking you've got the right answer just because you've typed it into a search engine. And actually they realize, oh, this is so much fun. I hadn't thought of that, you know, that they really get into the whole sort of comparing different books, comparing different sources. Then they sort of look at that and said, gosh, that's really oversimplified. He said, yeah, yes, it is oversimplified. If they say, what did I tell you about books? And they went, oh, all right. And they sort of look at you, grit their teeth and admit that you were right. And you just say, oh. So, and that can be replicated across all subjects, not just classics. You know, you say, who invented such and such, you get one answer. What that does not tell you is that it was based on a prototype that was invented 300, 400 years earlier. That was a massively important stepping stone. But if you'd gone into the sort of history of technology book, you might have found the more sort of complete picture of the process. So that's right. That's a rather long-winded answer, but it's a very, very good question. And the resort to Google, that dreaded resort to Google, is something I was very keen to try. And when I say hammer out at them, I don't mean it literally, obviously. So, but yeah, absolutely. Research skills are one of the most important things. You can teach them now to sort of take their curiosity and run with it. Otherwise, it's the school of Dr. Google. Yeah.
Thank
you, sorry, I interrupted someone, then I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, you didn't interrupt anybody. So we do have so many comments regarding your sessions, but I'm not able to see questions. I do have one question for myself. So for example, I will be asking as a student. So I'm a student and I'm an introvert. I do not have any friends and I'm not very popular. I don't feel accepted and I am creative and I feel that I can do things, but sometimes that the thing that I'm not able to shine in my spaces between my friends and my teachers, it is shadowing my creativity. So how can we as teachers ensure that my curiosity has space or I may be able to shine? Because sometimes when teachers try to meddle in, we don't actually go hand in hand with them, or we don't really understand. So how can we make those children feel included as we're talking about creativity and curiosity? And I think it is one of the most important topics as children in old school, like they don't feel, all children, they might not feel included. They might not be engaged in your sessions, or they might not get the best out of it. Some may feel what I feel. So what do we do with those students? Or how do we help them?
That's a fantastic question, as ever, Anisha. Well, this is where you've got to be careful with the whole dialogue approach that I was describing, because some kids don't feel comfortable about talking up or expressing themselves in a sort of verbal context in the classroom. And this is where I think individual projects are, I think, a brilliant way of doing that, whether it's, okay, so we're going to consider, and don't make it too specific, so then if they then come up to the question, they don't think, oh, I can't do it, and then the head goes down and then you've lost it, so to speak. But think, okay, I would think, right, so not sure whether that, I don't want people who don't like to speak up to feel that they can't be included in this, but I would treat, Christine has just said, I'll make a little video to speak. I think that's a great idea. Or give them an open-ended topic related to their subject and say, how would you approach this? And so they can then let their creativity loose, so to speak, in terms of saying, how would I solve this problem? If I wasn't quite sure about this, what would I do? And then, you're a creative person, you would enjoy that individually, but you wouldn't feel forced into the limelight, because that's not every kid's cup of tea, so to speak. And then you would receive good feedback and hopefully begin to be more confident about that kind of thing. And I would realize, this is what they really like. This is what they really enjoy. And so I would, feel that I wanted to contribute that, incorporate that into my lessons more, so that that person would feel that, I cared about what they thought about my subject and how they were responding to it and how they felt I could make them feel more included. I think that's very important. And I had a girl in year 9 at my last school, and ancient languages were not her cup of tea. And I started doing, I was doing a history topic with them. What was it? I can't remember what it was now. And she responded to that absolutely brilliantly. And I thought, amazing, right, fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure we've got at least one activity related to sort of history or context a week, so she can feel, yeah, there's something in this subject that I can sink my teeth into, that I am not being kind of shut out from it, so to speak. And then when I did language tests, I would always incorporate a couple of questions about that as well, so that she wouldn't think, oh, it's a vocab test, I always do so badly at these. She could just say, there's going to be a really cool question I know I can shine at. And it would always invite a bit of creativity as well. So I hope that answers your question. It's a question of finding ways that a child feels they can show you what their sort of where their curiosity is leading them, what their sort of particular favoured taste is in your subject, and to see, without having to single you out, that you have responded to what they've shown you. And that is shaping your teaching, and you're showing that you care about them getting something from your lessons.
But if I'm dealing with all kind of things that I told you, that like I do not have any friends, or I'm not popular, I'm not accepted, and I really don't care about like what you're talking about in your session, because you are there as a teacher and you're teaching a specific subject, and you will be focusing on that rather than focusing on me. So I'm a student, and I am very much in my own world, as to speak, and I am just I can understand that topics that you were talking about, and I can really convey my thoughts. But then again, as a teacher, you are there for example, an hour, and you're just delivering a session. But how would you set aside that particular student where you feel like, okay, she has potential, or she is curious, or she has creativity, even though she's not speaking out loud, or even though she's not contributing to any of your efforts? So how would you pinpoint it, and how would you make a difference in that particular student? Because what I think in my opinion is, if you are able to touch that particular student, and if you're able to empower him or her, then he or she could grow up, be an individual that he or she can really be. So yeah.
I mean, it's an excellent question. I mean, I have had students just like that one who I thought was pretty certainly understanding what I was saying, but wasn't saying a great deal. And what I did was, in this particular case, I just said, got something that might interest you. Can I have a quick word afterwards? And then I said, you are really good at such and such. Okay, it might not be your favourite, and I would just talk through with them about whether they were experiencing confidence issues, because that was something I was always very conscious of, as somebody who suffered massively from low self-esteem when I was young. Was sort of, if I spotted it, or just someone who was disengaged and just needed someone to say, you're doing really well at this, I would always try and find a way of telling them that I had recognized that. I said, I don't mind whether my subject's your favorite or not, I once said to one of them, but I think you've got a lot of potential in this, and I'm sure that extends to your other subjects too. I'm not asking you to necessarily put your hand up every 5 seconds, but I just want you to know that that's what I think, and that I had actually spotted that, because sometimes they just want you to notice that they have done something. They just don't want to push themselves forward. There's one kid who similar situation, but I knew would not like me sort of saying stay behind, because they were very not actually underconfident, but just really sort of shied away from the limelight as far as possible. And we're in a boarding school, so I just dropped an email to the house mistress and said, look, struggling to engage a bit, but I think he's very, very good. Is it possible? I don't want them to feel singled out. How's it best to approach it? Because they see these kids, in the morning, in the day and night. And she said, well, shall I send her along early? I said, yeah, sure. And then we just it just grew as a natural, organic conversation. And although I don't think they necessarily said more after that, they looked happier in class. They were sort of felt responded to, so to speak. And I think that's what you're saying, is kids want to know that you've noticed their efforts, even if they're not the loudest kid in the class, and which I completely agree with.
Yep. noticing and will appreciate your appreciative words among my friends. So it would really help me if I were to be that particular student. Thank you, Dr. Jose. Thank you so much. And if anybody would like to ask Dr. Jose a question, and we have Sinam. Sinam is from the United States of America. Hi, Sinam.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. And actually, it took me too long to get confident to push that button to speak up, but okay. Earlier today, we were talking about commonality, development, and features. And someone was asking about, which feature should be on the bottom or on the top of the, triangle. So I don't have any question, but I'd like to share my opinion about that. As a Montessori teacher, as a Montessori teacher in early childhood, Maria Montessori called that period like sensitive period, which means that every child has a certain amount of time to learn new things like reading, writing, or math. But this particular time is essential and unique for that child, which means that, if you miss that time, you might have a hard time in the future to learn or get that ability. So there is no, certain triangle that we can put, some feature at the bottom or some of them on the top. So that's why we need to observe each child uniquely to, get the sense of where they are in terms of, learning new things or curiosity. We should be open-minded every time or every day when we are in the classroom to see that. Because, again, if we want to, encourage, empower, or have our children that ability, we should be paying attention that, So, because also I'd like to share this, real story about that. There was a child which is called Wolfman. And that child was found in the forest after World War II. But he was left in the forest maybe when he was 3 or 4. Luckily, he was survived and found by, a couple of people. And then they realized that he doesn't know how to speak. He doesn't know, how to walk properly because he was copying what the other animals are doing. And then, scientists came together and tried to teach him how to speak, how to walk as a human and everything. But they just realized that that guy, missed that period and they couldn't learn how to speak as a human. So that's why, there are certain periods to learn some abilities and we need to follow the child, essentially.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Simon. Thank you very much for that. And that's why I didn't present it as a pyramid, because I don't think there is a sort of hierarchy. As I said, let curiosity lead the way. Don't say they've got to do this to express it, they've got to do that to express it. As you say, those early years, they've got so many wonderful ways they can express it, even when it's bawling their head off, actually. Sorry, that's just my toddler. But if they want to draw, let them draw. If they want to play music, let them play music. If they want to stand up and speak to you about it, that's great. But don't make them feel any way is invalid, because it's not. They're all valid ways. That's what how to incorporate in mainstream education as it currently is in so many countries is very difficult. But I think one can still do it by just reframing the way one presents it to sort of let you know that, let that enthusiasm fly, so to speak. Let them show you that they've got their own individual way of approaching things. As you say, those early years are so important. That's so true. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Very good point. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sinam. Does anybody would like to say or express their views? Please do unmute yourself. we have...
I have one quick question, please.
Sure, Dheeraj, sure.
Yeah, so, you know, most of the time when we talk about creativity, people usually talk about only art or music. They don't want to go beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. And that has kind of like limited very people's ability to do certain things in terms of creativity. So how do you define creativity, and how, for example, if I need to explain to the parents, like, say your kids is creative, so like, no, she's not playing any music, or like, he's not drawing or something like that, but they don't think any other things apart from these two most of the time in my context. So,
I think that's a very good point. And I think there is a tendency to think all creativity is playing music or it's art. I mean, it's not, there's loads of forms of creativity. You could write a poem, you could dance. Was it Rabindranath Tagore, I think, who was very big on sort of dance as a mode of sort of self-expression in education. And I agree with that absolutely. I mean, one way we did try and achieve this. It's very hard to do that once you hit the exam years, but one can still do it. You can still, you know, set creative revision tasks, for example. And if they want to do it as a dance, then they can. I have heard Latin grammar sung to Adele's "Rolling in the Deep." It was absolutely fantastic, bonkers, but absolutely fantastic, and we've never forgotten it. If they want to write a poem, that's absolutely brilliant too. So in year 9s at my last school, there was always at the end of the first term what was called the Pompeii competition, because that was our kind of cultural historical topic in classics for the first term. They could do whatever they liked. We had drawings. We had I had an exploding Minto volcano in my room. Yeah, that took a lot of clearing up, but it was great fun. Baking. Let's not forget cookery. I love it, cookery. We had the most delicious Vesuvius cake in that competition. I had the Pompeii wrap, which was brilliant. You know, and that was wonderful because it really showed you that even if the language side was, they might enjoy the history side, or they think actually this is really cool, and they could do whatever they liked. It was wonderful. It was great. And it made me realize what a rubbish artist I actually am. I enjoy art. I can't draw a banana to save my life, but isn't it wonderful to see someone who does respond like that, and then you say great, and they feel good about it, and that's what you want. Right? So creativity can be anything. Rap, cooking, painting, sculpture. Let's not forget, so creativity, whichever way they want to take it. But again, as you said, you don't want to be too prescriptive about it. It's a very good point. Thank you.
Can I say something, if you don't mind? I want to say sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you. Yeah. So, for example, as an educator, for example, like, okay, let's say a child is doing something, and you want to appreciate him, but you don't want to give this false appreciation, right? I mean, like, okay, he's drawing something, or okay, cooking something, and you want to appreciate it, so that you really want to encourage him or her. Mm-hmm. So what will be the best? You cannot, I don't want to say like, wow, this is so good, you are doing, you're amazing. I mean, are there like other ways how to encourage them in a positive manner, not on a false way, so that like...
Right. So you don't accidentally give them the idea they're going to become the next Caravaggio, or just because they're painting. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Well, I think what you've got to praise there is the method. They've come up with an original way of doing it. So even if it's not, also, you know, even if it's not brilliant, it's not going to win the Turner Prize, or it's not going to win Bake Off, then they've come up with their own response. They've had the confidence to do that. They've had the confidence to be original. And that's what I think, in many ways, education systems are bad at, is encouraging people to sort of be original and have originality, because, you know, they sit down and they write their paper at the end. So often the case. But in building those abilities to creatively respond in different ways, as you say, even if it's not brilliant, if they then come up with something quite an interesting way of doing it, then you praise that. Or if they say, well, I've done this because, and you think, oh, okay, clever. They've made a connection with the subject. So even if the end product's not, you know, brilliant, then it's, you know, we don't often praise how they learn enough, or their interesting and original ideas about ways to learn, do we? We sort of tend to praise the end product, or the translation that's handed in at the end. But if they've come up with an interesting way of doing it, plenty of praise should be dished out for that as well. Thank you. Really good question. Cool.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Thank you, Dr. Church. Gavin, were you about to ask a question?
Well, I really wanted to kind of say two things. I can see that this discussion is going on very long, and that's testament to how good the quality of the presentation was. You know, if the presentation is rubbish, then the questions are zero. If the presentation is high quality, then you can ask questions all night as we possibly could.
I could go on about this for ages. I love this subject. So,
I know, I can tell, and that's good. You know, like that's an interesting point, because quite often teachers aren't allowed to be who they want to be. It's said, you know, you walk into school and the principal says, "Look, here's a document to just teach this," and you say, "Well, it doesn't really ring bells for me. That's a bit boring. I'm not interested in that. Can I put my own twist on it?" And the principal says, "Oh, look, I'm so sorry, Barbara, but the government are coming in for a spot check and I'm petrified of that. So just say the words in a document, get the kids to write it down in their books, then tick it, give them 5 stars, test them on Friday, give them 100%. And when the government come in, everyone looks great. And so do I. And I can rest at night and go to sleep. But you'll never be the teacher you wanted to be, because you're just basically, you know, a robot reciting what somebody else has written." And that's not really what I want to say. What I actually wanted to say was, this whole essence of what you're really talking about here is a kind of a thematic learning kind of approach to learning, where everything is integrated. There's interconnectivity between everything in the entire world, and there is. And we often realize the interconnectivity of humans and nature and sustainability in plants and animals and biomes and all these things, but we forget that actually in school, because we have these segmented timetables of 8 till 9 is literacy, and 9 till 10 is science, and 10 till 11 is geography. What happens is the teacher is given this timetable, which is very robust and very strict in essence, and the curriculum follows suit. But what actually we're talking about here, and what actually should be happening, is the teacher should be saying, you know what, well, it says in the curriculum that I have to teach persuasive writing. You know, everyone teaches persuasive writing. But also, it says in the history curriculum that I have to teach about democracy. So you know what? What if I just put the two together and we wrote letters to politicians who are down the street, and we persuaded them to make changes to their policy? Should we do that? Should we teach them at the same time?
I love that.
Because if we do that, number one, the teacher has more time. Number two, the children have this real sense of tangible learning, because actually it makes sense. They're not writing a letter to the principal to change the canteen menu, which he's never going to do. They're writing to someone who actually might make a change when 500 kids write to him. They might see some real change. And what they learn is that actually the power that they have as a 7-year-old is very, very big. Because if they want the local park down the street to remain a park and not become a set of apartments, and 500 kids write to the politicians saying, "Hey buddy, that's my park and I like that park and I go there to play after school, and if you make apartments down there, I'll be very upset, and so are my parents, and my parents are voters, and you'll be out of a job." I'm not talking in such a threatening way. I'm talking more of a persuasive way. That politician gets 500 letters from 500, really, really passionate kids. He's going to think twice about changing the park into a block of apartments. But better than that, the students sit back and go, "You know what? I've got a pen and a piece of paper in my hand. I can actually make things happen. If we do this together, we can make things happen." And that all comes from a teacher being given the freedom to say, "Hey, if you can find connections with literacy and history or geography and mathematics or whatever that is, then go for it, Barbara." Because two things will happen. Number one, the kids will find agency, independence, and purpose. But number two, you'll have a lot more time on your hands, because instead of teaching everything separate, you can teach them together. And then you have all of that time to yourself to observe and talk to the kids and have one-on-ones and work with little Tommy, who's got ADHD, and you never get any time to sit with him because you're too busy teaching this such a robust curriculum. And it all comes back to trust. It comes back to the principal saying, "You know what, Barbara? I trust you. If you can find a connection, then you go for it. I'm all good. I'm not going to tell you how to teach because you're a professional."
Absolutely. As you say, we are back to that issue of trust, aren't we? And
Yeah. Anyway, that was my bit, but also I want to say thank you to you, and I want to say thank you to Anusha more than anybody else on this planet, and I always thank her so much. You know, the build up to just this event, and there's only like, you know, 50, 60 people being here tonight in total, but it's still amazing. You know, Anusha, this isn't something she gets together at, you know, 5 o'clock. She's planning this a month ago, ringing me, hey Gav, what do you think about this idea? I've put the poster together, check your email, I've got a list of registration. You know, like, this is her baby, she loves it, and you know, I've got to thank her for that. She's such an amazing person, and she only lives down us. Tomorrow I'm taking Anusha for dinner to say thank you to her for being such a legend. But you know, it's amazing to bring us all together like this. So thank you. You know, it's been amazing. I thank Chrissy and I thank Anusha and all the attendees for coming along. It's been beautiful.
Thank you to you and Anusha for setting this wonderful platform up in the first place. You know, it's great to be part of it. Thank you.
Well, that's a very interesting point. It's about to get better. We you know, we run this thing with no money. We just pay for it. We pay for it ourselves and run it together in our spare time. We're about to make it a bit more of a forum, so you can come and there is a feed where you can put posts and articles and likes and shares, and you know, it's not Facebook, so I don't think it's anything like that, but it will make us want to come back and connect, a bit more connectivity. But when you're doing things on a shoestring, things takes time. But this is magical. We had a discussion tonight which is very powerful. So
brilliant. It's a brilliant thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Gavin, for sharing that update. And yes, we will be launching some new features which will you know, ensure all educators to use our platform with more enthusiasm, and they could you know, collaborate with more efficiently, and they will be able to, you know, connect like as they browse Facebook every morning to see the feeds, maybe they would browse Education Influence to see the feeds in the future, and that is our ultimate goal, and which we will achieve soon. And thank you so much for everyone who has joined us for this amazing sessions.